Hey, welcome back 3D printing enthusiasts. We've been talking about turning plastic bottles like this into usable 3D printing filament like this. In my last video, I was discussing some of the various bottles that we might be able to find, what the good qualities were, what the bad qualities were, and I discussed a couple that had a lot of texturing in them, such as this big water bottle and this particular bottle. In this video, I'm going to address this texturing and my method for removing some of this. This isn't to say this is the only way to do it. This is just the method that I use. I'm sure there's other ways to do this. In order to make filament from our bottles, we're going to be cutting them into a long ribbon by putting them through a cutter, either a set of sharpened bearings or a razor blade, and making a spiral cut around the bottle. Now in the case of this bottle, it's already smooth. So as we cut our bottle, we can make sure that our width is consistent and the entire ribbon will be flat and smooth. This bottle, on the other hand, has this texturing. So if I begin cutting this, you'll see as we hit these ripples that it could cause our ribbon to change its width that we've set for. So it's best that we try to remove this texturing and these ripples to make the best ribbon possible. Now the method that I use for getting rid of this texturing involves lightly pressurizing the bottle and then warming it up with a heat gun like this one. For bottles that I use a lot of, I make these. This is just a simple Schrader valve from a car tire. These are available at any auto parts store. I cut a hole in the cap, and then I can put it on the bottle and add just a small amount of pressure. So here I have a Schrader valve that I got at the auto parts store, and let's make a pressure cap for this bottle. The method I use for doing this involves using one of these step bits. And if you don't have one, they're fairly inexpensive. And we're going to drill a hole in this cap that is just slightly smaller than the seat of this valve. I don't know if you can see that here, but the cap has got to be seated in there. So I'm going to be drilling a hole in this cap that's just a little bit smaller than that and forcing it through. Now, if I were going to be using this particular cap a lot, I would also take the time to go in here and add some silicone or some E6000 adhesive in there to make a really good seal between the Schrader valve and the cap. One additional safety measure that I have is that while we're heating this bottle after it's been pressurized, we don't want this cap softening and popping off. So I've printed these up. These were just simply made in Tinkercad, and it slips over the top and it presses tight on that cap so that the threads are forced onto the threads of the bottle. That way when we begin to heat this while it's under a little bit of pressure, this won't blow off. To pressurize these bottles, you can use an air compressor or even something as simple as a hand pump for like a bicycle tire. When you pressurize these bottles, you only need about 1 or 2 pounds. Be super careful. There's no need to over pressurize these. We just want enough pressure to keep the bottle and the plastic from shrinking when we go to heat it up. See, that meter is just barely moved on there. And this is what the bottle looks like now with just a pound or 2 of pressure. You can still squeeze it a bit, but that'll be enough to keep the plastic from shrinking in and helping to pull these ripples or pull them back out when we apply heat. And here's our Gatorade bottle that we just made the new cap for. Again, just enough pressure to keep this from shrinking. Now while we have the bottle, we'll start our heat gun. And just very carefully while turning the bottle, apply heat to those ripples. Don't get too close and melt the plastic. And you can see there that those ripples of that texturing has softened. We'll give this a moment to cool off. Once the bottles have cooled, we can remove these pressure caps. But we first have to release any air pressure in here so that the cap doesn't blow off. You can see here that between the pressure and the heat gun, it was pretty effective in removing that texturing, the ripples. Even for this bottle, it got those coarse ripples out of there. I'm not quite sure, I'm convinced that I would still use this bottle, but I was able to show that we can smooth those out. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed this video and learned a little something about taking the texturing and the ripples out of these bottles. And I hope you like, follow, and share. In the next video that I make, I'll be talking about cutting off the bottoms of these bottles and getting them prepared to color. There's several different ways of doing that I'll be discussing in the next video, like this blue here, or even this red that was colored with some product that I found on Amazon that I'll tell you about. Until then, take it easy. See you in the next one.